Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Hello and welcome to Dad's Eye View. I'm your host, Kenneth Braswell, and today our guest is Susan Bredice, and she is a parent partner with the Village of Colonie. However, they serve the entire Albany County. We'll talk more about that as we move forward. And today we're going to talk about the services that they offer to parents, and hopefully that you will find your way to them to take advantage of the services that they provide for families. How you doing, Susan?
I'm well. How are you today?
I'm doing okay.
Great.
Tell us a little bit about parent partners.
Well, parent partners are first parents, and we have children that have experienced challenges just like every other parent, but we've been successful in navigating different systems. So what we do is we help other parents when they have issues or challenges with their children to find services, give information, make referrals, make connections and linkages.
Mm-hmm. Now, how did you find your way into this work?
Well, I'm a mother, obviously, and my children, I have 5 adopted children.
Okay.
And so we've had our own issues with our own kids, and I've had to find services for them. About 7 years ago, there was a grant that was available, and that was looking for what they call parent partners,
Mm-hmm.
and they needed somebody that was well versed in the different systems.
Okay.
And I was recommended, and that's how I started my work. And but that's where I started my paid work. I've always been a child advocate, a family advocate, all my life,
Mm-hmm.
from the time I had a family, because I think it's very important to find those supports for families and to be able to share that with other families.
Mm-hmm. You know, we do a lot of work with fathers. That's our primary work.
Mm-hmm.
But the work is always driven to strengthen families and to create better atmospheres for children. And in these economic downturns, we're finding that families are finding more challenges in their lives. What are you seeing with parents these days?
Oh, there's no doubt that there's challenges, for parenting. The things that the challenges are that the kids are so involved in maybe cell phones and the computers and stuff that they forget, they learn that they don't know how to communicate, and that means they don't know how to communicate with each other face to face or with their families.
Mm-hmm.
And families are kind of losing those connections, so we need to bring families back together and learn how to reconnect.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's very difficult, and sometimes one party doesn't want to do it and the other does. We have to find ways to bring families together, children and their parents together, families and their community together.
Mm-hmm.
The challenges are, obviously there's economic challenges, and how do people find those services, and how do we finance those services?
Right.
It's a real challenge to find these type of things, but we're lucky that we have good connections here in Albany. We have an abundance of services. Sometimes not enough, sometimes not the right things. But there are services out there. It's just being able to find them.
Mm-hmm. What do you find to be the biggest service that people are seeking?
Well, I think that it's just really emotional support from each other. When I meet with parents, they say, well, what did you do? And I think sometimes it's just they need an ear to listen to them. And sometimes they come up with their own answers at what they need to do. But I think is that support from a peer. Peer-to-peer support is so important.
Mm-hmm. I really do believe that, we're in a time, where there is an increased challenge. You talked about communications a few minutes ago. I want to come back to that. And you said you have 5 adopted children. I'm not sure what their ages are. But have you found that technology in your household becomes a barrier between communicating with your children and yourself?
Oh, absolutely. And we run a program at the Village of Colonie Outreach Center that for kids that aren't being successful in the regular school setting. And I see the kids that, we have to have them set aside their cell phones. They're always texting. They want to be on the phone. It's such a barrier for them to learn, to interact with people, and to be successful in the community, because they're always texting, or they're on the phone, or they're on the computers, on Facebook. I think it's been a huge challenge to families, to the community at large. Absolutely.
Yeah, I took part in a intergenerational workshop about a couple of months ago, and we had the silos of the Millennium kids, the XY generation, the baby boomers, the millenniums, they're calling them, and the traditionals. And so the workshop was designed to see how each felt about their hopes and their fears and any issues that they had with the other generations. And ironically, the millennium kids, which were, I think they're 16 to 22, somewhere around in there, they had a very interesting perspective on technology. And this one young lady said that we didn't ask for technology. You guys were the ones who wanted to do everything faster, to replace, manpower, to go to the moon, to have the fastest cars, to have the best computers. And we are just products of what you produce. It's not our fault. Don't blame us because we are technological kids.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was an interesting point. What do you think about that?
Well, they're, in many respects, they're absolutely right. And I have to say myself, technology helps me in my job.
Right.
I use to reach out to families. I use technology to touch base with kids. I use it to research programs. So we need technology. It's just when we overuse it and we forget that relationships are what really matters.
Right. Yeah, no, even in my own household, I've had to set rules with respect to technology.
Me too.
And it's relatable, and what I've always said to youth is, you can have your technology, but be responsible in using it.
Absolutely.
And don't allow it to distract you. And so, even rules such as, when we were growing up, my mother was such that when we were eating dinner, you did not answer the door or the phone. Her thing was, when we are having family time, it is family time.
In my home, we still do that. We
right.
don't, and I think, when we work with parents and they're struggling with these things going on in their families, we have to teach them or explain to them, or we talk about it, that boundaries are very important in managing your family and being a successful family, and for kids. Boundaries are very important for being successful in your job, in your schooling, in your community. You have to be able to set your boundaries, and you have to stick to it.
Right. And they don't. And I think sometimes even as adults we get caught up in technology. I see, there's still issues with, adults talking on their phones and texting while they're driving.
Yeah, how do you expect, this is very important, because how do you expect children to learn if you're not being a good example? And so, that's a good point.
Is that a product of a younger parental population, you think?
I don't know. I'm certainly, what we see at the outreach center is that, we see families that faces challenges no matter what age they are. So I can't, they run the gamut. So I don't think that, I can say that it's, the younger parents are just, I think it's just a statement of the age that we're in. I think when we come up with challenges for families, it doesn't matter what the age of the parent is. The challenge remains that whatever it is, would it be mental health, or would it be, in social services or educational, developmental delays for their children, whatever the problem may be. I see them all different. They're looking for help, and we need to help. We need to find places to help them. Yeah,
you mentioned that earlier with respect to the biggest challenge or the service that parents are seeking to be that of emotional help. It seems that there are so many multiple stressors today. that parents are having problems juggling, the intense issues of the day, whether it be economic struggles, whether it be relationship struggles, parental struggles. It seems like every struggle is more intense today. When you are talking to parents, I would suspect that you get a sense of what their emotional state is. What do you see the most troubling when you're talking to parents?
Well, I see that you're right. They're frazzled. There's just so many things going on. They got to get to work. They have to get their kids to school, if their kids are going to school, or if their kids are being oppositional to going to school. How do you address those issues? They have to, parents, have to get home and feed the children, provide for the children, provide for themselves. There's just so many pressures going for families. And then when we have the challenges on top of it, if your child has an emotional need or a mental health need, I think that what do you do? Where do you go? And I think who do you turn to that knows about these things? I know in my own life that when my child went through a very difficult time, and she had mental health issues, and I had never been faced with anything like that. I wish I knew somebody to talk to that could explain to me what was going on, where I could go get help, and then what type of outcome am I going to be looking at? There was nobody there for me. This is probably about 10 years ago, and I think that people just need other people that have been through something, that have been through the similar situations, to say, well, this is what I did. It may not work for you, but it worked for me. People need peer-to-peer support. People need to hear, and that's talking and face-to-face talking is so important, because you really get the essence of who the person is and what their needs are, and how you can be helpful to them. I think it's, people are pretty verbal when you start sitting down and talking to them what their needs are. It's just how do you get those needs met? Right.
You're watching Dad's Eye View. I'm your host, Kenneth Braswell. Our guest today, Susan Bredice. She is at the Colonie Outreach Center. One of the statistics that we've been laboring over this past year is the out-of-wedlock birth statistics. 41% of our children today are being born into out-of-wedlock households. 73% of African Americans, 53% of Latinos, and 35% of Caucasian children are now born into out-of-wedlock households. What are you seeing with single mothers who come seeking services?
Well, single mothers, single fathers, too. We see them as well. It's very difficult to raise a child by yourself. And we look for programs that will help mentor these young people, because it's you don't come with a handbook on how to raise a child. It's something that you need to learn. And how do you learn best is to learn from somebody that can show you or mentor you. Now, many of the kids that haven't had good experiences with their own childhood or with their own parents, so we need to we try to hook them up with mentoring programs and to help with their parenting skills, to learn how to parent, to learn how to bond with their children. Young kids today, if they're teenage parents and stuff, they're still children themselves, right? And they still really want to do what other teenagers are doing, but they have a responsibility, because now they're a teenager second, they're a parent first, and they have to learn how to do that, and how to navigate those systems and how to navigate those friendships that they have. But foremost and primarily, they need to learn to be parents. Right.
We talk about out-of-wedlock households, and sometimes we talk about that and we detach it from the issue of divorce. And we know that the divorce rates in our country now are over 50%. And they say that it is even higher in faith-based institutions, that where it should be lower, that it is even higher in our churches. Has the traditional notion of marriage been lost?
I hope not, because I think that for families, and I can't really speak to this because I'm not an expert here, but what we see, when you have a family, a husband and a wife, a mother and a father that are together on the same page, families are so much more successful. Parenting is so much more successful. And the outcome is that the child is a healthy child, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally. And that's why when we see out-of-wedlock children, okay, if you're not married to the father, you're not married to the mother, you need to develop a relationship because you have a child. You need to work together because you've produced a child, and your focus needs to be on the child. So, we always, I think, marriage, yeah, but I never encourage anybody, if marriage is bad, you shouldn't be staying in it, But, not so much the marriage, but the parents working together is so important.
Talk about the services that you provide to help a parent get through some of those issues.
Well, because we're parent partners, we're not social workers, we're not psychologists, we're not psychiatrists or anything of that sort. We are parents that have been through some things ourselves. So we're very knowledgeable on the different services that are available within the county, Albany County. And we will make referrals. And it's always strength-based. So we sit down, we talk to parents, their families, the children as well. Say, what works for you? What is gonna be more success? Make this success for you. What are the barriers that you're meeting and how can we help you overcome those barriers? And so it's a very strength-based meeting that we have with parents. And then we say, okay, what's out there? And so we look for the different types of if it's a parenting program. Do you need help getting health insurance? Do you need mental health counseling? Do you need to be an assessment for a diagnosis of some type? Do you need school advocacy? Is something going on in the school that you're not sure about or you're not happy with? Can we advocate with you for that? So we find out exactly what it is. Okay, and then what are the barriers that are getting you to where you need to be? Sometimes it's the very basic things, like I don't have enough food on my table. I don't have transportation to get to a job. I need those things. I need a telephone to be able to call the doctor, to call for a job or something of that sort. We connect people to the services that will be helpful to them the best that we can. And sometimes we're very limited. It's hard to find those services.
Right.
And then we also, we talk to families about other support services. Would you like support in that if you have a child that has a developmental delay? Well, we know that there's organizations out there that focus primarily on that. Do you have a child that has a mental health problem? And would you like to talk to other parents about that? And we hook them to those types of things. Do you have a child with a health problem? We hook them to to support groups with that. And we also, in doing that, it opens up another whole doors for other supports because other parents know other things,
Right.
So I think the most important thing is that people are connecting with each other.
That informational loop seems to be more traditional for women and mothers than men and fathers. So you brought up the fathers, and we were going there eventually.
Yeah.
And so what are you seeing, with fathers who are seeking services, and how do they find themselves there? Because typically we are, and I speak for myself and probably speak to 99.9% of other guys and fathers, we react to emergency. And so until I can't function anymore in this particular area, that's when I'm going to seek help.
Right.
And not before then. Nor am I going to be comfortable with asking anybody else about that because I don't want to give them too much information about my own vulnerabilities. And so what are you seeing with fathers?
Well, it's interesting that when fathers are referred to us, and it's primarily through the school district that they are referred to us, they come in and I think it's a relief to find out that we're not social workers or anything of that sort, that we are parents as well, and we sit there. But I think they're reluctant because in our society I think fathers have sometimes been devalued. And I want them to know, and I express this when we meet with fathers, how important fathers are in the roles of their children, as role models to their children and the development of their children, rather. And I think, and I let fathers know that I value their position in their children's life, and that they're coming to me asking for help or asking for some type of guidance. How important that first step was, so important, and what a great job that is. And I think once they get in the door, and they say, well, it's okay to ask for help. They have to know that it's okay to ask for help. And I think fathers need fathers. They need each other, and to find out what's working for them and what's not working for them, and especially if you're a single dad, to bounce things off, bounce ideas off. I think it's so important that they have someone that they can relate to. They can come in and talk to me, but I'm a mother. It's different.
Right.
We refer them to fathers groups as yours, or fathers groups like we're running in our own at the Outreach Center, and to have that type of support.
Yeah, we are going to, as soon as I talk to Mr. McGrath, I'm going to have him come in and talk about Father's Focus, which is a program that's going to be operating out of the Colonie Outreach Center. There are a number of fatherhood programs beginning to emerge in the Capital Region, and it's my hope that at some point to get them all through here, because I think they are necessary. One of the other programs that I just spoke to their group, probably about a couple of months ago, Parent to Parent. Parent to Parent has a wonderful father support group, and they focus on fathers that have children with developmental delays. Yes. And that in itself, that's a struggle. I mean, there's a lot of stressors when you have a child with a developmental delay, and how do you deal with that? It's a whole different ball game. It really is. So that type of support is so important. Yeah, it's such a touching place to be, to listen to these men really talk about their parental struggle. Some of it was a father struggle, but most of it was a parental struggle. How to deal with the emotions of their child, how to deal with their own notion of the measure of their own manhood and the expectations that they had for their children, particularly their sons, and them having to navigate that. And then the next step, which is trying to navigate the relationship with their wives and their significant others. Right. And so, we talked about mediation earlier, and we were kind of this notion of peer-to-peer and modeling. We don't see modeling. I could tell you, growing up, I grew up in Brooklyn and spent a lot of time here in the last 20 years in the Capital Region. And married couples is just not a model behavior that I see. I see it more and more now. But growing up wasn't something that I saw. So I'm going to assume that most of the parents that come to you are not married. And so the question is, when those parents come in, how do you deal with the mediation of their ability to remain parents, not being committed to each other through marriage? Well, what we do is, we talk about, what's important here. You're here because there's a problem, but so what's important? And what it comes down to is your children should be, that's the important thing. And if you can't get along with each other, you got to find a way. If you can't talk to each other and you can't come to a common ground, you need help with that, because for the sake of your child, there has to be common ground. So what we do is we refer them to mediation, because people, you can go right to family court, or you can go to the police department. But if you don't need to do those things if you're talking to each other. And mediators can help with that. Right. There's mediation matters here in Albany County that we make referrals to. There are private mediators if the families don't feel comfortable doing that, going to mediation matters. But and it's amazing, when you have a third person in the room. When you're telling your story and your partner or the other parent is telling their story, how things come a lot clearer when you're not just arguing with each other, but you're hearing it, and then you have somebody throwing it back at you and saying, let's find the common ground. There's always common ground. So. Yeah, and it just, I'm a product, of mediation, and I know it works, and you do sometimes need that civil-minded person who is not attached to either of you emotionally. A good friend of mine said to me a long time ago with respect to marriage and relationships, she says that the woman is always going to have friends of her. The man is always going to have friends of him. But make sure that you have friends of the relationship, people who care about the relationship between the two of you more than they do each of you individually. Those are the people that are going to give you the advice that's going to be the best for you with respect to relationship. So talk to me a little bit about the path of people coming to the outreach center seeking help? What happens when they walk in the door?
Well, I have to first tell you that we're all not just in the outreach center. We, as parent partners, we're contracted with Albany County to be in the Children's Mental Health Clinic.
Okay.
Right now, we're presently there. And we're going through a contract with them now to be with Child Protective Services and the Juvenile Probation Department. Mm-hmm. So when families come in, we sit down, we get the information, what the problem is, and once again, we look at the strengths of the family. What are the strengths of the family? And and we try to work on those strengths. Mm-hmm. And if dad or mom are good in some particular, maybe dad likes to go fishing a lot, or dad's really computer literate or something. How do you use that to work with your child? Mm-hmm. And we look at the child too, say, what are your strengths? And then we look, after we look at the strengths, we say, okay, so what are the needs of the families? And once again, we look at the needs, and a lot of times it's the basic needs, but a lot of times, they just need maybe short-term counseling, or maybe they need somebody to come into the school with them. We identify whatever the needs are, and then we address them the best way we know how, and that's usually through referral or advocacy, where we go with the family to wherever they need at a meeting or whatever to help them through, because sometimes meetings with providers can be very scary. Okay. And it's good to have an ally next to you.
Absolutely.
And that's what a parent partner is, an ally.
Okay. There's an emerging conversation around the issue of mentoring.
Yes.
And so we know that parents who are struggling to provide all that they can to their children sometimes seek out additional help through mentoring. And we know you're not a mentoring organization, but could you speak a little bit about why that's important, why having an active mentor is important?
Well, because, mentoring is so important, especially when we're talking about families with struggles. Because if we're struggling, it means that we're having a hard time meeting a challenge or meeting a need. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you have to find somebody that can help you meet that need, especially when there's one-parent families. It's very difficult fathers and mothers provide very different things to children. Mm-hmm. And so in order for them to get another perspective, or what if the father's missing or the mother's missing, you need a mentor to be there to show a person, or show a young person, this is the way a man does it, or this is the way a woman does it, this is how we handle. And you hate to say that there's a difference, but there is a difference, on how things are handled. Mentoring shows some of the children or some of the youth that we work with, their families have not had the opportunities that may be open to them. Mm-hmm. So we like to hook them up with mentors that show them that there are opportunities out there, that you're not in this little caged world. There's a whole world out there, and don't limit yourself because you live in a household that only has one parent, or you live in a household that doesn't have a lot of income, or you have a learning disability. Do not limit yourself. There's a world out there that can be open to you, but somebody has to show you how to do it. Right. And it may not always be your parent. They may not have the ability to show that to you. But a mentor, if it's a good connection, they may be the one to show it to you. Okay.
Now, you told me earlier that you had a small staff. Do you guys seek volunteers?
Yes, we do seek volunteers. Okay. Yeah, they can contact us at the Outreach Center, the Village of Colonie Outreach Center, in 1639 Central Avenue.
Telephone number?
218-1030.
One more time.
218-1030.
Susan, thanks so much.
Well, thank you
for being a guest on Dad's Eye View. I'm going to commit to coming down and doing some volunteering. I've been seeking an organization like yours from this level in terms of parents. I think I can offer something.
I think you can.
So, we'll stay in touch. Again, we're going to try to get Hank McGrath in here to talk about their father's program, but I think that this issue of providing, peer-to-peer services to parents is just an incredible one, and one that can make a serious impact very quickly. And an organization that has the ability to have a referral network to provide services for those parents is even more critical. We're going to thank all of you for watching Dad's Eye View. I'm your host, Kenneth Braswell. Want to also bring your attention to a wonderful event that we'll be having February 10th at the Polish Community Center. All dads, be on notice that we are having a daddy-daughter dance. And we're doing this dance so that we can begin to show our daughters how they should be loved by other men. There is no age limit for the daughters, no age limit for the fathers. We're just asking for you to come out and have a really good time. For more information on that, you can go to our website at www.fathersincorporated.com. Thank you again for watching Dad's Eye View. God bless and see you next time.